Angle indicator. This is fixed to the rudder stock and shows the rudder angle. Rudder stock nut. This nut acts as a securing device for the friction connection between the rudder stock and the rotor. Expansion tank. This tank serves as a reservoir and expansion tank for the system oil. Stoppers. Make boundaries for the pressure chambers and also set the limits for the rudder angle to each side. Ring jack. This is used during installation to force the rotor onto the rudder stock. Stoppers. Make boundaries for the pressure chambers and also set the limits for the rudder angle to each side. Upper radial bearing. The upper radial bearing takes up horizontal or radial forces together with the lower radial bearing. It is made of brass. This bearing is lubricated by the system oil. Cover. The cover forms the top of the pressure chambers. Housing. Serves as the outer boundaries, side and bottom of the pressure chambers. Rotor. This is the moving part of the actuator. It turns the rudder stock when the hydraulic pressure increases on either side of its vanes. It is fitted with spring-loaded seals to allow for some movement in rotor position. The wear rates on these are very low. Lower radial bearing. The lower radial bearing takes up horizontal or radial forces together with the upper radial bearing. It is made of brass. This bearing is lubricated by the system oil. Rudder stock. This is the connecting shaft between the rotor and the rudder. Lower packing gland. This keeps the system oil from leaking down the rudder stock after it has lubricated the lower side bearing and the rudder carrier bearing. A separate watertight seal is fitted further down the rudder stock to prevent water entering the hull. Rudder carrier. This bearing carries the weight of the moving parts of the steering gear, including the rudder. It may also take up some of the vertical forces that waves and propellers can cause. This bearing is made of brass. This bearing is lubricated by the system oil.